Hey guys, my name is Amy, and today I want to talk about my experience with ego death and LSD. I've heard a lot of other people talk about ego death and talk about it in a positive way, like it was something that improved their lives and it was some type of life-changing positive experience for them. But I want to talk about how ego death and a bad LSD trip and being stuck in a bad LSD trip actually, I feel like, ruined my life, and I'm still trying to recover from that trip. I would say it's been about 4 years since my last LSD trip, and I remember very vividly what happened. Well, first of all, let me just start off with the definition of ego death. Ego death is something that relates specifically to the use of psychedelic drugs, and it's specifically the complete loss of subjective self-identity. So it's pretty much you lose your complete sense of self when you're under the influence of a psychedelic. We've all heard of people getting permanently stuck in acid trips, and I never thought of that being my situation up until I really gave it a good thought and learned that my acid trip really traumatized me, and it really changed my life, and it really took a toll on me and how I manage my life and how I take care of myself and how I live my day-to-day life. And it's become miserable, and I've just barely been able to manage. And I hope other people can hopefully relate to this and not just look at ego death as a positive experience where they can regrow and things like that. But I hope this can help other people that are still struggling with getting out of the traumatic incident of their ego death and are still trying to regrow their ego. So my ego death happened when I was, I think, 24 years old, and or 25. I'm 29 now. I took a hit of acid. Everything was fine until I went in the bathroom and I looked in the mirror. And I started looking closely in the mirror, and I started looking closely at my face, and I started looking closely at my pores in my face and noticing like little blackheads, and started picking at my face, and I started to freak out because I was going through an abusive relationship at the time, and it had just started to become abusive. I had just moved in with this man, and he had just started showing me that side of him. And it had just kicked in my mind that I was stuck in this situation with someone that I hardly knew, and I was living with them, and I was stuck with them, and I didn't quite know what to do. And I think that kind of hit me at that moment, because my skin was starting to break out, and I was saying to myself that I was so stressed out that my skin was starting to break out. And then I started looking around the house and starting to say, oh my God, we're living like dope heads. This house looks like a crack den. You know, even though it wasn't that dirty, I just felt like my lifestyle and the way that I was living was that of, like, for some reason I thought it was like, you know, like we were living on mattresses on the floor when we weren't. We had beds and tables and couches, and I just, for some reason, I looked around and I just said, this looks like a crack den, like a trap house. And I started freaking out at my quality of life. I just thought, this isn't what I wanted for my life. You know, I just started freaking out about my entire life and where it was going. And I called my father, and asked him what to do because I was having a bad trip. And he said, you know, take a Xanax and just hope that it wears off. And I just was crying and crying. And my boyfriend and my friend didn't quite know what to do. They just kind of left me there and let me cry it out. But at the end of the day, I never really recovered from that acid trip because it made me come to light that I was fully aware of what my boyfriend was doing to me, and I didn't do anything to stop it. And it made me feel like I was living the life of a hoarder or a crackhead, living in a messy home. It made me feel like I was going nowhere with my life. It made me feel just like a second-rate citizen in my own eyes, and worthless in my own eyes. And I still feel worthless in my own eyes. I stopped doing things for myself, like getting my nails done and taking pride in how I looked, and I stopped modeling. This is when after that I stopped being I used to be a plus size model, and I stopped modeling after that incident. And I think it's because I didn't feel beautiful anymore. And I think I gained a little bit of weight after that because I stopped feeling beautiful. And my life pretty much went downhill from there. And I think it's pretty much because of my bad trip. And now I'm 29 years old. It's been 4 or 5 years later, and I still feel like I'm stuck in the trip. And it's, like I said, almost 5 years later. I still feel like that trip never quite got out of my system. Like, I still never shook it. I always wanted to do things and was very active, but at the end of the day, my bad trip just won't go away. So I'm stuck with it, and my ego is dead, and I hope that I can shake it someday. So wish me luck, and I hope that others out there aren't dealing with the same thing, and if you are, I wish you luck. Thank you.